I don't know if it's because I'm recording this video late at night. You know, last night I showed y'all I went to the Vancouver Canucks game. No biggie. They beat the Colorado Avalanche 3-1. Great game. Fantastic atmosphere. So I ended up taking a lot of time to come home because that's what happens when you go to the Canucks game. You usually get home somewhere, let's say 10:30 to 11:15, depending on where you live and depending on if you stop by the Burger King drive-thru on your way back. But because I'm recording this video later, maybe that's why I find this so hilarious. But today we're talking about the Montreal Canadiens and how you can really unequivocally say that this is a new low point for the team and especially for its fans. This is a new low for the Habs. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because of a few things. Firstly, I wanted to talk about Reddit. Secondly, I wanted to talk about my YouTube channel and just some things that I haven't noticed. Because earlier today, scrolling on the RHAB sub, I saw this post made by Staples1323. Everyone's talking about how we, the Montreal Canadiens, might have messed up by not taking Mishkov. But why is no one talking about Logan Cooley? And this post has 0 upvotes. It's 26% upvoted right now, which means that a vast majority of our Habs users downvoted this post. Now, in theory, you're not supposed to downvote stuff that you just don't like or agree with. You're supposed to downvote stuff that you think is not fitting to be there. Like conversations that are unnecessary or things that are off topic if it actually garners a positive and meaningful discussion. Even if you disagree with it, Reddit theory says you're supposed to upvote that, because as long as you can acknowledge the value in having that conversation, then it belongs on the platform. But this, oh boy, Habs fans do not think that this conversation belongs, and let's go out there and read it just to see where they're coming from. Staples1323 says, I'm not sure if it's because Logan Cooley plays for Utah and gets less attention, but it should be talked about in my opinion. He's already at 26 points in 30 games this season, only 5 fewer points than Juraj Slafkovsky up to this point in their careers with 36 fewer games. Also, Cooley plays center. If the Montreal Canadiens had drafted him, we'd have a solid, long-term 1-2 center punch with Suzuki and Cooley, plus 2 long-term potential elite wingers in Caulfield and Demidov. Add Laine also. Honestly, I'm starting to worry more about Logan Cooley at number 1 than the Matvei Mishkov pick at number 5. Given Cooley plays center, and we know the importance of a good top 2 center tandem for a cup-winning team. I'd rather build lines around centers as they make players around them better. Look at Suzuki this year. And here's the thing. When you compare 1-to-1 Logan Cooley versus Juraj Slafkovsky, right now Logan Cooley is the more productive, more effective, and the better, quote-unquote, player. Long-term, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows if Logan Cooley really fulfills his potential as Mitch Marner on center with a lot more of a goal-scoring touch? Who knows if Juraj Slafkovsky fulfills his potential as potentially the next Mikko Rantanen? Who knows? Nobody knows, right? It's in the future. But for now, it's very easy to say that Juraj Slafkovsky is struggling and Cooley is doing well, therefore the Canadiens made the wrong choice, quote-unquote. But here's the thing. Even though that idea isn't necessarily wrong, you did have a lot of Canadiens fans going out there and getting really pissed off that this idea was even brought up. And this is why I say this is a new low for the organization. Let's turn to the comments section. How about this? It's easy to say that they should have drafted Cooley over Slafkovsky now. Had we drafted Cooley and he was a bust, you'd be saying the same thing with different names. Drafting is gambling and you just have to play the hand that you're dealt. This is all revisionist history. They didn't take Cooley because they traded for Dach as a center literally 30 seconds after Cooley was drafted. The Montreal Canadiens had no idea Kirby Dach would blow his knee out completely a year later. In their minds, they walked out of a 2022 draft with a top winger in Slafkovsky and a possible top center in Dach. It's also premature by about 6 years. Oh no, a player who has no pressure on him, Cooley, has done fairly well for a bit of an obscure team out in the boonies. We screwed up the draft. That thought process is midsummer crap post level garbage. And the next comment is the one that really sealed the deal for me, thinking about this entire thing as not just a symptom of Montreal Canadiens fan depression, but also just a low point for the Habs in general. This is such a low point for this sub, DeVille99 says. The Pittsburgh Penguins really made this fan base implode. Then Online Egg replies, "For real, all the comparisons and the what-if posts are getting really lame. It's a rebuild. We're gonna lose more than we win. People forget that progress is never linear. Slafkovsky isn't suddenly bad at hockey. He's only 20, and last year he showed us how effective he can be. Players don't peak at 20. We need patience." And when I saw this thread, I was like, oh, you know what? That's actually exactly what's happening here. The Montreal Canadiens are going through such a painful moment in their rebuild with varying levels of expectations. Like, some people thought, oh, they could potentially challenge for a wild card. Slafkovsky could get maybe a 70-point year if he's lucky. Doc is going to come back and he's going to be a 40-assist guy. Line is going to have an immediate impact, score 40 goals. Caulfield's going to get 50, and you know, there's potential for this team to do stuff, and then they started to lose a lot, and some of the players that we wanted to see big things out of there have been disappointing. So now, because the team played off against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they're labeling the Penguins game as a turning point, when that game happened, it just became all doom and gloom for Canadiens fans. And the fact that they're even labeling it out, saying, hey, the Pittsburgh Penguins destroyed the way that this team and the fans talk about this team. Now we're having random posts in the middle of December. Hey, do you think the Canadiens made a mistake by not drafting Logan Cooley #1? That was never in the conversation one bit in 2022. You take a time machine back then, nobody was talking about Cooley #1. People were talking about Shane Wright or Slafkovsky #1. You know when people were talking about Cooley #1? It was in like December of 2021. 5 months before the NHL Draft. During the World Junior Tournament that year, that is when Cooley started to get some hype as a potential Shane Wright challenger for that #1 spot. But quickly after the World Juniors, we started to see more Slafkovsky hype because he started dominating the Olympics and these other international tournaments, and the Habs didn't need a center, which was also kind of played into it too, and they had this idea that Slafkovsky was this unicorn. Oh, how many skilled centers with really good hands are there, like Logan Cooley? There are probably more of those than there are big-bodied, all-around situation power-scoring wingers like Juraj Slafkovsky. Thus, they went with Slav. Also, you could debate the ceiling is a lot higher too because he's bigger and there's also some projectable skill there, but still, because the Canadiens fan base is going through such torture right now, watching the team lose against Winnipeg, watching the team lose against Pittsburgh, and now we're all clamoring out, talking about guys struggling, now is the time to start saying, hey, what about taking Cooley 1? Was that a big mistake too? They took Slafkovsky #1 and Reinbacher #5. Should they have taken Cooley and Mishkov instead? Now it's revisionist history, and now fans are calling out other fans for saying, hey, we don't need this at this time. Like, why are you talking about this? There's no reason to talk about this. Part of me also believes very strongly that because the Canadiens are going through this rough patch, the fans that are responding to the fans are also, like, cynically thinking about this stuff too. Maybe it would be easier to have a should the Canadiens have drafted Cooley #1 instead of Slafkovsky conversation if the team was just winning. But then again, if the team was winning, there'd be no reason to have that conversation in the first place. It's a combination of the fact that the team is sucking right now and that the fans are pissed off about the team, that firstly, any conversation that goes against the team, like, oh, Slafkovsky was a mistake at #1, is met immediately with cynical fans replying saying this conversation is unnecessary. It's a low point for the sub. It's a low point for the conversations that we have about this team because we are so cooked. Our brains are fried at this point. And so I want you to answer me this question. 2 questions. Firstly, was taking Slafkovsky over Cooley a mistake? And number 2, is it really worth it to talk about whether or not taking Slafkovsky over Cooley was a mistake? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj Slafkovsky, and bye.